Trumas Perek Yud Mishnah Aleph. Botol shanosnei b'sei chadoshim im sholim mutter. If food of chulin absorbs the flavor of truma produce to the extent that the flavor can be detected in the food of chulin, the food must be treated as truma may not be eaten by a zor, by a non-kain. So this parak is going to discuss this kind of taruvus, if you want to call it that. This halacha applies when chulin and truma are different types of food. Mixtures of foods of the same type have been discussed previously in Perek Daled. So if truma onion was put into chulin lentils, the halacha is as follows: Sholim mutter. If the onion is whole, it's mutter for a non-kain to eat the lentils because the onion doesn't give flavor to the lentils. The lentils were cooked to the point that they released all their moisture, and then onion was added. The lentils caused the outer peel of the onion to shrink and harden, preventing the onion from releasing its flavor. However, if the onion was put in while the lentils were still cooking, the lentils do not prevent the onion from releasing its flavor. Therefore, if the time of the onions can be detected in the lentils are usher to a non-kain. But if the onion was cut before putting it into the lentils are usher to a non-kain if there's a nisin tam of the onion in the lentils. Therefore, the lentils must be tasted by a kain who is mutter to eat the lentils, even if they had the flavor of the truma onion. If he detects the flavor of the onion, the lentils may not be eaten by a non-kain. Otherwise, it may be eaten by a non-kain as well. It's interesting because the Ma'aser Gemara Chulin says that when we're dealing with some kind of treifus or some non-kosher food, so how do you figure it out? Maybe over here there is some kind of yid that could eat it. Now, not every yid could eat it. A kain could. Over there, are we saimech on the palter, or are we saimech on the non-Jewish cook? So, if he's just talking, you ask him, you're not coming to him with a halakhic question. You ask him, hey, what does it taste like? Then why would he has nothing to lose by telling you the truth. Once the onion is cut, the lentils do not prevent from releasing its flavor. The lentils absorb the flavor of the onions and are thus forbidden to a non-kain if the flavor of the onion can be detected in the lentils. Generally, flavor, tam, is transferred from one food to another only with heat, through soaking or pickling. Here too the Mishnah is speaking of one of these cases, but Pashtas we're talking about where it was cooked. Okay, but regarding any other cooked food, if any other truma vegetable such as garlic or leek was placed in a pot of chulin lentils, ben shalim ben mechutich ben eisin tam. The halacha is that whether the vegetable was whole or cut, the lentils are forbidden to a non-kain if the flavor of the vegetable can be detected in the lentils. This is because only onions don't give flavor when cooked with lentils. Other vegetables, however, do give arbonite in time when cooked with lentils. Therefore, the lentils must be tasted by a kain to see if they absorb the taste of the truma vegetable. If they did, they are forbidden to a non-kain. Generally, foods other than lentils do not prevent an onion from giving a flavor, meaning that the onion will be giving flavor, will be nice in time. Therefore, if they are cooked with truma onion, they become aser. The Mishnah cites an opinion of a Tana who holds that there's a type of food that does not become aser when combined with the truma onion. Rabbi Yehuda matter but tzachana. Rabbi Yehuda permits in the case of a type of pickled fish that was put in a kli together with the truma onion, that tzachana is mutter to a non-kain even though it absorbed the flavor of the truma onion. Why? Tzachana is a kind of small pickled fish that has a very bad smell. It was common to put an onion in the fish in order to remove the smell. The Mishnah teaches that if a whole truma onion, which doesn't disintegrate, was used for this purpose, the tzachana would be permitted to a non-kain because it's not there for any flavors altogether. This is because the onion is put in this dish to remove the bad smell of the fish and does not improve its flavor. Since the flavor of truma onion doesn't improve the tzachana anyways, it does not aser the tzachana to a non-kain. Mishnah Beis. Tapuach sheriska nasner tzech isa v'chimtza. We have learned in the previous Mishnah that if truma became mixed into chulin, the taste of the truma can be detected in the taruvus. The taruvus is aser to a non-kain, to a zar. This Mishnah is going to teach us another case where the taruvus is aser and an exception to the rule. If an apple or truma was crushed, meaning the applesauce, and placed into a dough of chulin, the apple caused the dough to turn into chametz, v'chimtza. When fruit, such as crushed apples or their juices, are mixed into dough, they could cause the dough to rise. If it's fermented, this is what they would use instead of yeast a lot of times. Hareza asura, this dough is aser to a non-kain, even if the taste of the apple cannot be detected in the dough. Since the apple causes the dough to rise, it's considered a significant ingredient to the dough and is not going to be bottled. Therefore, a non-kain may not eat it. So, if barley of truma fell into a pit of water, even though the water absorbed so much of the taste of the barley that it became spoiled because of the barley flavor, of mutarim, the water is permitted to a non-kain, Since the flavor of barley does not improve the taste of the water, but instead spoils the water, it doesn't forbid the water to a non-kain. The barley soaked in the water until its natural moisture drained out and gave flavor to the water. Flavor of forbidden food does not prohibit another food if it gives a food a bad flavor, because that's called noisein tam lefgam. Right? This is big yeridei type of rate. Okay. Mishnah Gimel. Harayda paschama, if one removes hot chulin bread from an oven, and places it in the opening of a barrel that contains bread, that contains wine of truma, the halacha is azay. Remeir says it's asr. Remeir oiser. Remeir says it's asr to a non-kain. The bread is asr to a non-kain. Since the bread was hot and placed in an open barrel of wine, it absorbed the reach of truma. Therefore, a zar may not eat it. Rabbi Yehuda matter. Rabbi Yehuda says it's mutter because he holds that the reach of truma, the aroma of truma, without any flavor of truma, meaning that it's a reach and it's not a tam that was absorbed in the chulin, does not asr it to a zar. Rabbi Yehuda holds that reach alone has no halachic significance. Since the bread contains only reach truma, it's mutter to a zar. Remeir, however, holds that reach does have significance, therefore the bread is going to be asr. Rabbi Yossi matter b'shal chitim. The next Tan agrees with Rabbi Yehuda that the reach of truma without any tam does not asr. Nevertheless, he holds, in the halacha in this case depends on what type of bread was placed on the barrel. Rabbi Yossi matter b'shal chitim. Rabbi Yossi permits the bread if it's made of wheat, because the reach of the wine that's absorbed in the bread is mutter. But he forbids bread made of barley, because barley bread draws in the moisture of the wine. This is more from common places that sa'orim are shoyev, they draw in any kind of moisture. In such a case, the bread contains not only the reach of truma, but the actual moisture of the truma as well, which is therefore going to make it also to a non-kain. Rabbi Yossi agrees with Rabbi Yehuda that reach has no significance. However, Rabbi Yossi holds that when hot barley bread is placed in an open barrel of wine, it doesn't just absorb the aroma of the wine, it even absorbs the tam of the wine, so the bread is going to be also to a non-kain. Wheat bread, on the other hand, does not absorb the wine itself, and is therefore permitted. Mishnah Dalet, Tanu shehisika bechamin shel truma v'avabai. If an oven was fired with cumin, which is a type of spice of truma, that means cumin of truma was used as fuel for the fire of the oven, and one baked bread of chulin in this oven. Hapas mutaris, the bread is mutter to a non-kain. She'ein tam kamoin elareach kamoin. This is because the bread does not have any flavor of cumin absorbed in it. Only the aroma of cumin and the aroma of truma is permitted, as we just explained in the previous Mishnah. Now we know that when cumin burns, it gives off a very strong smell. This aroma is absorbed into the bread. However, none of the actual cumin is absorbed into the bread. It's just the reach. Like Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi in the previous Mishnah, the time of this Mishnah holds that the reich of truma has no significance, therefore the bread remains permitted to a non-kain. Mishnah Hey. Silton shenafla l'sech habar shel yain. If fenugreek fell into a pit containing chulin wine, the halacha is azay. Fenugreek is a plant whose seeds are used as a spice of and was truma. The stalks are not edible. However, it has the same flavor as the seeds. Here, the entire plant, including the stalk, fell into the wine. Because the wine is strong, it absorbs the taste of the silton inside the stalks, inside the seeds. The Mishnah discusses whether the tam of the inedible stalk must be included when determining the status of the wine. So, b'truma b'maisa sheni, if it was silton of truma or maisa sheni, im yesh b'zera kadei litin tam, we calculate whether the fenugreek seeds, the seeds of the silton, can give flavor to the wine. Literally, whether there's enough in the seed to give flavor. That is, even if the flavor of fenugreek can be detected in the wine is not necessarily subject to the halachas of truma ma'aser sheni. We must calculate if the seeds alone were put into the wine without the branches, if their flavor would be detected in the wine. However, we don't take into account whether the stalks can give flavor to the wine. Since the stalks of silton are not eaten, they are not subject to truma ma'aser sheni. Therefore, only the flavor contributed by the seeds needs to be considered. Therefore, we measure the wine in seeds. If that amount of seeds could give flavor to the wine on its own, the wine is then going to be mechuyev in truma and ma'aser sheni. However, if the seeds alone cannot give flavor to the wine is mutter, even though the seeds and stalks together give flavor to the wine. If it was silton of shvias klayem, meaning it grew near a grapevine or hektish that fell into the wine, we measure whether the seeds or stalks of the silton together can give flavor to the wine. Since the stalks are subject to the halachas of shvius and klayim and hektish, the flavor of the stalks must also be taken into account. Since the flavor of the stalks is the same as the seeds, the halachas of shmita apply even to the stalks. Likewise, Kili HaKaram applies even to the inedible parts of the plant. In the case of Hektish, however, the owner was Makdish the entire plant, therefore the stalks are also Hektish. Since the stalks are subject to these halachas, the flavor is also taken into consideration. Thus, as long as the taste of the sultan can be detected, the wine is going to be aser. Mishnah Vav. Misha Hoyud Lechavile Sultan Kili HaKaram. If someone had bundles of sultan of Kili HaKaram, and he made it into bundles, so Yidaleku, the halacha is that they must be entirely burnt with the stalks, because the halachas of Kili HaKaram apply even to the inedible parts of the plant. If one had bundles of sultan of tevel, she may pound them to remove the seeds from the stalks in order to separate truma only from the seeds, and then estimate how many seeds they contain, and then separate some seeds as truma. He does not, however, need to separate some of the stalks as truma. Only edible items are subject to the chiyuv of truma, and the stalks of this sultan are not edible. Therefore, one may remove the seeds from the stalks and separate truma from them alone. If one separated truma from the sultan plants without first making this cheshbon, without removing the seeds, he may not say, I will pound the whole bang on the sultan that I separated as truma to remove the seeds, and I'll take the stalks for myself and give only the seeds of the seeds as truma to a kayin. Rather, he gives the stalks to a kayin along with the seeds. Although there's no chiyuv to give truma from the stalks, if he did not first remove the seeds, but instead designated the entire plant as truma, he must give both the seeds and the stalks to the kayin. Meaning, even if he gives it to a kayin, the branches, the stalks, are not actual truma, even if they were designated as truma. As we explained in the previous Mishnah, that if sultan falls into wine, we don't include the flavor of the stalks when calculating the amount of flavor needed to asa the wine, even though the stalks themselves are designated as truma. Mishnah Zayin. Zeisei chulin shekavshanim zeisei truma. Chulin olives that were pickled with truma olives. The halach is azay. P'tuei chulin and p'tuei truma, crushed chulin olives that were pickled with crushed truma olives. P'tuei chulin and shlemei truma, or you had crushed chulin olives that were pickled with whole truma olives. Oy b'mei truma, or even crushed chulin olives that were pickled in water that had been used previously for pickling truma olives. It's aser to a non-kain. This is because the pickling process causes olives to release their flavor even if they are whole, and also causes olives to absorb flavor as long as those olives are crushed. Thus, if crushed chulin olives were pickled with whole truma olives, and certainly if they were pickled with crushed truma olives, the chulin olives absorb the flavor of truma olives. Even if the truma olives were removed from the water before the chulin olives were put in, the water itself has tam, definitely has tam of the olives of truma. So the chulin olives are still used to a non-kain because they absorb the tam of truma that's in the water. Salt water in which truma was pickled is usher to a non-kain because salt water absorbs the flavor of the truma. Therefore, when crushed chulin olives are pickled in that salt water, they absorb the flavor of the truma from that water. Aval shleimei chulin and p'tuei truma, but whole chulin olives that were pickled even with crushed olives of truma, mutter, are permitted to a non-kain because whole olives do not absorb flavor through pickling. A food releases its flavor more easily than it absorbs flavor from another food. Thus, while pickling can cause whole olives to release their flavor, it cannot cause them to absorb flavor. Only when the olives are crushed will they absorb the flavor from the other olives. Accordingly, the status of the olives depends entirely on the state of the chulin olives. If the chulin olives are crushed, they become aser, even if the truma olives are whole. However, if the chulin olives are whole, they remain mutter, even if the truma olives are crushed, and certainly if they are whole. Mishnah Ches. Dog tamesh akav shem dog tahar. A non-kosher fish was pickled along with many kosher fish in one barrel. The halacha regarding the fish brine, which is the fish yoich that is in the barrel, is as follows: Kol gorov shu machzik sasayim, concerning any barrel that holds 2 sa of the liquid. Im yesh ba mishkal asar zuz biyehuda shechamesh lam bagala dog tameh. If the amount of non-kosher fish brine in the barrel equals the weight of 10 zuzim from Yehuda, which is equivalent to 5 sela from the Galil, and the rest of the barrel contains kosher fish brine, tzirei aser, all the brine in the barrel is aser. This is because fish brine is very sharp, and is not going to be bottled even in a very large amount of kosher fish brine. Therefore, even if a total of 2 sa of brine, even in a total of 2 sa of brine, there are 10 zuz, there the weight of 10 zuz of a non-kosher fish brine, which is a ratio of 960 to 1, all the brine is going to be aser. When fish are soaked in salt and vinegar, the salt draws out the body fluid of the fish. The salt or vinegar in which the fish is pickled along with the fluid that comes out of the fish is called sear. which we're referring to as brine. In our case, the barrel contains the brine of both kosher fish and of non-kosher fish. The Mishnah will discuss how much non-kosher brine makes the entire brine forbidden, as we just explained. Rabbi Yehuda Omer revius b'sasayim. The brine is usher only if there's a revius of non-kosher fish brine in a barrel containing 2 sa, which would be a ratio of 192 to 1. However, if there's less than a revius of non-kosher brine, then the brine is going to be mutter. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Rabbi Yossi Omer, Rabbi Yossi is even more makel, and he says echad mishisha asar bay. The brine is prohibited only if a non-kosher brine is 1/16 of all the brine in the barrel. However, if the non-kosher brine is less than 1/16 of the total brine, the seer is going to be mutter. According to Rabbi Yossi, non-kosher brine, seer, is treated more kuladik than other food that's asr. The reason for this is because brine is only the sweat of the non-kosher fish. That is the moisture that oozes out of the fish as a result of salting rather than part of the fish itself. It's like a zeo almost. Therefore, it's permitted on minatera. Although the Chachamim answered it, they didn't require the usual ratio of 60 to 1, but 16. I'm just going to read the Lashon of the Rav, how he ends off the Mishnah. The Hilchah said that Tzir batal b'yoser me'elef. Tzir can only become batal if you have more than 1,000. Im yesh yoser me'elef midog tahar ve'echad midog tameh hakol mutter v'mlav hakol aser. Because the tzir is so strong, so if you have more than 1,000 times of dug tahar in kosher fish over the non-kosher fish, everything can be mutter. If you don't have 1,000 times, then it's going to be aser. Mishnah Tes. Chagovim tmeim shenichbishum chagovim tayrim. The Mishnah continues to discuss the halachas of food which was pickled with dvarim hamutarim, which was pickled with dvarim ha'asurim, and it applies to kosher and non-kosher grasshoppers. Kedua, the Torah is matter eating grasshoppers, although there are some communities like the Moroccans, the Yemenites, and the Egyptians that have a Mesorah. Really, the Iker Kashrus that you need to know about Chagovim is if you have a Mesorah. It's very difficult to know. Well, there are many different types, and the Simonim are very specific, as the Gemara Chulin goes through them. But the Iker is to have a Mesorah, and obviously the Mesorah has to shtim with Vashteit Nalach as well. So, Chagovim Tmeim Shenichbishum Chagovim Tayrim. If non-kosher grasshoppers were pickled with kosher grasshoppers, which means that the grasshoppers were soaked in salt or vinegar, which draws out the body fluids of the grasshoppers, let pasul el es tzirum. The non-kosher grasshoppers do not answer the brine. That is, the tzir may be eaten even if some of it came from non-kosher grasshoppers. This is because the brine of non-kosher grasshoppers is not viewed as a part of the grasshopper itself, but as a separate entity. The Chachamim therefore matir such tzir of the chagovim when it's mixed with kosher chagovim. Heyid Reb Tzadok al tzir chagovim tmeim shehu tahar. While the Tanakama was matir a mixture taruvis of brine of kosher and non-kosher grasshoppers, he holds that the Chachamim nevertheless assered eating brine of a non-kosher grasshopper on its own. Reb Tzadok testified that he received a Mesorah from his Rebbeim al tzir chagovim tmeim shehu tahar concerning brine of non-kosher grasshoppers, that it's entirely mutter, even if it's not mixed with kosher brine at all. According to this, there would be no makam of iser if you have a taruvas of chagovim tmeim chagovim tayrim, because Tzadok holds that everything is mutter. Mishnah Yud, Kol Bashim Zem Zem Mutar, regarding all types of chulin vegetables and truma vegetables that were pickled together, the halacha is that the chulin vegetables are permitted to a non-kayin, ela imachasis, except for those sharp vegetables such as an onion and garlic. This is because pickling doesn't usually cause a transfer of flavor of truma vegetables. However, a sharp vegetable can transfer its flavor through pickling. Chasis shal chulin and chasis shal truma. A sharp vegetable of chulin that was pickled together with a sharp vegetable of truma, yarik shal chulin and chasis shal truma. Or you had a vegetable of chulin which is not sharp, that was pickled with a sharp vegetable of truma, aser, it's forbidden to a non-kayin. The truma vegetable, which is sharp, transfers its flavor to the chulin vegetable. This is true whether the chulin vegetable is sharp or not. Aval, chasis shal chulin, im yarik shal truma mutter. But a sharp vegetable of chulin, certainly a vegetable of chulin that's not sharp, that was pickled with the vegetable of truma that is not sharp, is mutter because the truma vegetable, which is not sharp, does not release any flavor. Thus, even if the chulin vegetable is sharp, there's no transfer of flavor. Mishnah Yud Aleph. Rabbi Yossi Omer Kol Anashlokim Mimatrodim Asurim. As we've seen in the previous Mishnayos, when the flavor of a forbidden food is absorbed into kosher food, it asers the kosher food. This Mishnah discusses that topic further. Now, the Tana of the previous Mishnah said that vegetables of truma that are not sharp do not transfer flavor when pickled with another vegetable. This implies, we can understand from that if a vegetable that is not sharp is cooked with another vegetable, flavor is transferred. Meaning it's dafka because it was nichbashim zemzeh, that it doesn't give the flavor. But if it's nishlakim zemzeh, then it will give the flavor. And that's what this Mishnah is going to discuss. Rabbi Yossi Omer kala nishlakim matradim asura. Anything that was well cooked with tradim of truma is utter to a non-kain. Tradim are a type of sharp beet. The Tana of the previous Mishnah that said that all types of vegetables transfer flavor when cooked, and sharp vegetables transfer flavor even when they're pickled. Rabbi Yossi, however, holds that only tradim transfer flavor, and only when they're well cooked. Meaning you have to have both of them. Because tradim give flavor to whatever is cooked with them. Other vegetables, however, do not give flavor to food that's cooked with them, even when they are well cooked. Therefore, if chulin vegetables were cooked in a pot with vegetables of truma, a non-kohen may eat the chulin vegetables. Reb Shimon says, Kruv shel shikya and kruv shel baal aser. If a chulin cabbage grown in an irrigated field, which is a field that does not receive enough rain, and the plants are therefore watered, was cooked together with truma cabbage grown in a rain-watered field, a field that receives enough rainwater and doesn't need additional watering, the chulin cabbage is aser to a non-kohen of nature by leah, because the chulin cabbage, which is relatively dry, since it grew in an irrigated field, which is not naturally moist, absorbs flavor from the truma cabbage, which is moist, since it grew in a rain-watered field. Rabbi Yehuda says, "Kalam is bashlam zem mutarim." When any two foods of the same type, one which is aser and one which is mutter, are cooked together, the permitted food remains mutter. This is because forbidden flavor doesn't prohibit it in a mixture of two foods of the same type. Ella im habasar. However, it's permitted if permitted meat is cooked with forbidden meat. For example, kosher beef was cooked with beef of a treifa cow, so then the meat becomes asur, because in such a situation some flavor is added from the forbidden meat. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri says, "Hakaved oseres, non-kosher liver that was cooked with kosher food prohibits only the other food. Prohibits the other food. Since the flavor of the liver enters the permitted food, it makes it asur. But the kosher liver does not become forbidden if it's cooked with something that's not kosher, because the liver releases flavor which doesn't absorb flavor. Liver contains a large amount of blood which is constantly releases when it's cooking. This prevents the liver from absorbing flavor from the other foods. Therefore, while it releases its own flavor into the other foods, it does not absorb any of its own flavor. So we know the halach is, Mishtet Yeridea, Simenayin Gimel, that the liver may not be cooked even by itself unless it was broiled first, because it has so much blood in it. That's the way to do it. Normally you could salt it and use salt meat, and that's good. But when it comes to liver, it needs to be broiled to get at all the meat, to get at all the blood. Mishnah Yud Beis, Beyosh and his bashla betavlan asurin. If an egg was cooked with forbidden spices, let's say it was truma or klayim, right? If it would be truma, just be usher to a kind. If it's klayim, be usher to everybody. Afilu chelman shala usher. The halacha is that even the yolk, and certainly the white, is going to be usher. The chelman is the yolk, mipneishu bailea, because it absorbs the flavor of the forbidden spices. Although the white of the egg separates the yolk and the outer surface of the egg, the flavor of the spices reaches the yolk and forbids it, even though it might look like a separate thing. The Mishnah is discussing an egg that was cooked in its shell. The flavor of the spices penetrates the shell and it continues to spread even in the yolk. So therefore the entire egg is going to be asur. Meishlakos umei kvashim shel truma asurum lazarim. The last halach in the parak, the last halach in the Mishnah is the water of well-cooked truma vegetables and the water of pickled truma vegetables are forbidden to non-kohanim because the water absorbs the flavor of truma. This Tana does not agree with the Tanaim in the previous Mishnah who hold that vegetables do not give flavor when pickled. Rather, he holds like the Tana from Mishnah Yud. Since that Tana atzes vegetables that are pickled with truma vegetables only when the truma vegetables are sharp, our Mishnah must be referring to a case where the truma vegetables were sharp as kan.